Hello, Education 2220 students. I hope everyone is having a great week. So, I'm making this video because I've had a few questions about the co-teaching assignment. So, way back, let's talk about the beginning of the semester when I said that you had three main course projects in this class. You had your service learning, you had your choice-based project, which is where you could do work-based learning or you could interview a parent who has a child with special needs, or you could do the peer review article. The last one was your co teaching assignment, which is this one where I want to go over. So, co teaching is something that teachers sometimes do in an inclusive classroom, right? So, it's actually a strategy that's evidence based teaching, and you will work with another teacher. So, sometimes it's general education teachers, sometimes it might be a general education teacher and a teacher assistant, or it might be a general education teacher and a special ed teacher. So it could be just a combination, if you will. Not many districts do this, but it does happen. So what you're going to do is you're going to demonstrate and create a co-teaching assignment. So you're going to be working with another teacher. Now, some students said that they wanted to work alone, which keep in mind you will have to do two teacher parts, two roles in the lesson. And some people chose a partner, which was fine. If we were an in-person class, you would have to choose a partner. But since this is online, our schedules don't line up, and we don't have time in class to work on it, I felt it would be unfair to ask you to expect you, if you will, to work with someone unless you wanted to. So what you had to do was you were going to pick one of the evidence-based strategies to choose from. There were several of them. And what you were going to do is also choose two co-teaching models. And what you were going to do is create a lesson plan and a presentation. So the presentation is kind of like a visual aid. So it could be Google Slides, it could be Book Creator, it could be PowerPoint presentation, Prezi, it didn't matter. Some kind of visual aid that went along with your lesson plan. So you basically are going to teach us, pre-service teacher, how to use this strategy in our own classrooms. So instead of thinking back to the lessons where you were creating them for students, think about this like professional develop, a workshop for teachers. So you're going to teach us how to use this strategy. That's the main objective of this assignment. So what you'll do is if you go to getting started, there's a section that says course projects and service learning. Underneath service learning, there's a section that says co-teaching assignment. That's where you will go. I do have a video. It's a little bit outdated. I'm going to actually end up fixing that, but it just gives you an overview. Um, but what you'll do is the actual instructions is here in the co-teaching lesson plan. It gives you the guidelines, what you need to do, the expectation. So please read through this thoroughly. You'll see here that here are the evidence-based teaching strategies. You're only choosing one that you're going to teach us about. Okay. And you should have already emailed me which one you're going to do and if you choose to work alone or with a partner. You will have some research that is necessary for you to do. And I'll show you where to go. That's a video that the research coach librarian has created for us, which is quite helpful. So you will have to research that strategy if you're not familiar with it. And then you're going to design a co-teaching lesson plan. There is a lesson plan form template provided for you. You will need to remember and keep in mind that this lesson plan cannot go over 30 minutes, okay? And that it needs to include at least two co-teaching models. Now, in your lesson plan form or template, you will attach any handouts that you need. You can also put these in Dropbox, any print materials. So anything you're going to use during this lesson, you will have to attach it either with a link that's live inside of the lesson plan or just attach it inside the Dropbox. If it's not going to be a live link and it's going to be really difficult for me to be able to find it, that's happened in the past, I'd rather you just put the file inside the Dropbox with your stuff, with your materials. And then you will have to create a presentation to go along with your lesson plan. Now, remember, your presentation should not mirror, meaning be the exact thing. What it's going to do, it's not replicating your lesson plan. It's just giving us some visuals about how we can actually implement this. This could be things like photos or videos demonstrating how to use the strategy in action. Okay, we want it to be engaging. So just keep that in mind when we're talking about the visual aid. Now, both the lesson plan and PowerPoint presentation have to be submitted in the Dropbox. There's a section that says co-teaching, lesson, and presentation, so you'll submit the files there. You can have more than two files, like I mentioned. You'll have one for your lesson plan form, you'll have one for your presentation. The other one could be your attachments, any handouts, things like that. Do not submit them as a PDF just because if there's corrections that need to be made, then you won't be able to open it back up. So just keep that in mind. Now, I do have resources here for you. There is an audio PowerPoint that walks you through each part of the lesson plan form of what you have to do. This is the actual lesson plan form itself, what you will be using. Pull it down here for you to see. So here's the lesson plan form you're actually going to use. So um, the teacher one and two, again, I mentioned if you are working with a partner, that's great. You'll put both names. If not, you'll put your name and then just put a pseudonym name or whatever you want to name that teacher. But just keep in mind, if you don't have a partner, you still have to create two teacher roles because that's the whole point of a co-teaching assignment is that two teachers are actually teaching. At the top is going to be those co-teaching, and I'll show you in a minute, co-teaching models, right? So we've got one teach, one assist. So these are the types of strategies or models that you will see in a co-teaching classroom. You've got station teaching, parallel, alternative, team. So which two are you going to use to teach with? Which models? Your topic or lesson, remember, it's not going to be something like math or anything like that. The topic lesson is your actual strategy, right? Your in-task strategies, in-task standards, I'll show you in a minute. These are your teacher preparation standards. These are pre-service teachers preparing to be teachers in the classroom. You have standards that you use. I will show you where they're at. You will need to put at least one of them down there. Your lesson outcome is basically that you want us to learn about whatever strategy it is that you picked. Your materials, any vocabulary, and then here's where we get into the actual lesson plan itself. So you've got the first section is going to be how you hook us. We call it a hook. It's an anticipatory set. You're stating your objective, or you have a fun little short 2 to 3 minute activity. And each teacher has a role in that. So you will basically state each teacher's role there and then what the activity is. So there's 3 boxes in the column. There's 3 columns. And each column you're going to put something, okay? So in this row here, the first column, you'll put what you're going to do for the activity. On the same row in the second column is going to be the first teacher. What are they going to be doing with the class? And then what will the second teacher be doing during that time? Okay. And again, what you're going to be doing depends on your co-teaching model, right? Then you have your meat. Okay. So if we're thinking of this as a sandwich, this first section, your top bun, right? And then you've got your meat and cheese. These are your lesson activities, right? This is the main component of the lesson. What are you going to be doing? Typing out what you're doing. And then each teacher has a role to play, thinking about those models. And it does help if you list during each section what kind of model you're using, so I'm not having to play guessing game, and to make sure that you actually understand the models that you put what model you're using. During this time, we're using station teaching. This teacher's doing one teach, one assist. I want to know what model you're using in each part of the lesson. And then closing it out. Closing is always going back and restating your objective. Um, it's making sure students understand what they're doing. Sometimes people want to do this with an exit ticket, something of that sort. But keep in mind your formative assessment should be some way to check our understanding that we know how to use this strategy in our own classrooms. And then any extra questions that you might have that you want to put on there. Okay. So that will be it. I do have a rubric for the assignment that shows you what I'm looking for. And I gave you an example lesson plan and I gave you an example presentation for each of students' past work. So you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like, which I find helpful myself. Now let's go back to those in-task standards. The in-task standard is going to be underneath the same section. These are a support tool. This is promoting teacher effectiveness. These are the standards that you should be able to follow. Now, remember, I want you to go through these standards and look and see what of your lesson, what standard would fit best, right? So you would put one of them there in your lesson plan. The next one that we're going to be looking at, I said, was those models. Now, there is a wonderful section here that says co-teaching models, and these are actually videos, short videos that kind of help you gain insight to what they actually look like in the classroom. So if we're doing station teaching, what would that look like? If we are going to be doing parallel teaching, what does that look like? And this is in a classroom where there's two teachers teaching. Okay, there's two teachers that are always in this classroom together. So that just gives you an idea of what those models look like. And remember, you're choosing two in your lesson plan. I wouldn't do no more than two because we're sticking with one lesson. Okay. The next thing I want you to look at is going to be this video that um, the library research coach actually created for us. This is really good when we're doing any kind of research using the database through Water State. And it really kind of helps walk you through, okay, how do I choose a strategy, which you hopefully at this point have already chosen what strategy, but really walks you through how do you implement research properly. We're looking for strategies, yes, but how do we narrow it down? She really walks through how to look at the resources available for you for this project, and she's going to assist you. So watch that video. Um, she made an updated, which is this one, because the EBSCO host databases have changed quite a bit. So this video kind of helps walk you through that if you're not familiar with that. The other thing I wanted to mention too is is actually embedded in our course. So if you go to class list here and you scroll down, you're going to see coach, under the role. That is Sabrina Moreland, which is the librarian, and she's a wonderful help if you are in the middle of researching and maybe you have a few questions or need some assistance. She'll be happy to help you as well. Okay, so whenever you're finished with your lesson plan and your presentation and you're ready to submit, like I said, you're going to go to Dropbox and you're going to scroll down until you see course projects under co-teaching lesson plan and presentation. And like I mentioned, you could submit multiple. Obviously, you're going to have at least two because you're going to do your lesson plan and presentation, but any additional attachments or handouts or anything that you feel like I would need to see when I'm grading it, I would want you to attach it there. Unless you know how to put live links and attachments and videos inside the lesson plan, which I've had students do in the past and they weren't live and I couldn't get it to work. So if you are not tech savvy that way, don't even attempt to put it inside the lesson plan. I would just put it as an additional submission under Dropbox. All right, that pretty much covers it. As always, feel free to be as creative as you want. I've had some wonderful presentations, especially last semester. I was really pleased. So, if you are working with a partner, this is an amazing opportunity for you to really dive into those models and take advantage of that. But I really look forward to seeing like your visual aid and what you come up with. And some of the activities have been very creative for the evidence-based teaching strategies. So, I look forward to looking at those. Remember, it is due on April the 16th. So hopefully you've been working on this. I have stressed to you in the past that during this project, look at the very beginning of the semester and work on it as you went through so you're not trying to struggle and get it done now. All right. I hope you guys have a great week. Until next time, take care.